Here we go. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. I'm here recording on this beautiful Monday morning from the beach. Don't know if you can hear those beautiful wave sounds in the back. A little bit of birds. I wouldn't call that chirping. It's more like squawking, but birds nonetheless. I don't even know if it's sunny. Where I'm at over here, I can't even hardly see anything. It's foggy everywhere. There's a boat out there, but otherwise I can't see anything. I can't see very far. Very terrible visibility compared to how the visibility looked on Sunday, so it's foggy. But it was supposed to be sunny starting around noon, but I left the house sometime after breakfast, and I posted for day 27 earlier today, so, or earlier, I don't know, this might be another midnight post, but anyways, today, I'm gonna talk about the topic of, sex positivity, sexual positivity. Alright. I'm rolling up my windows a little bit because people are parking right next to me. So, just some kind of topics I'll just kind of cover. A very informal definition of kind of what I'm trying to talk about here. Kind of experiences of what it's like recording, especially recording topics about sexuality in general. For people who have been listening to this podcast, you probably realize that I don't think it's presented in a very raunchy way, but it's kind of like, it's not something I'd really like share with like my aunts and uncles and parents and things like that. But it's also not like I don't know if it's educational, maybe a little thought provoking. I'll talk a little bit about my own experiences fangirling over certain people, especially when it comes to the like adult entertainment spaces. I talk about these people all the time whenever I come across some interesting content, and also about this concept of, I guess the topic would be called sexual companionship, but it's kind of like as it pertains to like advertising and stuff like that. But you know how they say sex sells, and so just kind of along those lines, and then kind of like the psychology behind that, and then I like the thing that kind of got me back on thinking about this topic is because I came across an interview that was from the podcast called Back to Your Story. I came across that late last night, I think right when it was, pretty much when it was posted. I think it was posted yesterday, and I came across it. I'd never even heard of that podcast before, but I do follow a lot of content by, I guess, Blake Mitchell is his entertainer name, but his name is Lane V. Rogers. And I'll post a link to that podcast episode. It was nice because it was like almost 2 hours long. A lot of details in there. It was interesting, kind of how they talk about his journey from kind of how his life was early on, childhood, teen years, a little bit of family dynamics, and kind of like how he became like a very successful porn star for the most part. He's a bisexual cis male porn star. For the most part, to my knowledge, most of his scenes have been filmed with males, queer males. I don't know any other aspect of that, and I can't remember if they talked about it specifically in that podcast episode. He might have done other scenes with like women, or tried to. It sounds like at least he tried to, but I mean, he's dated women and had relationships with women and things, um, and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't come across him through that. I came across him through, like, I think initially because of Helix Studios, and I've talked about them a lot too. So yeah, back up. So that's kind of what I'm going to be covering. I don't know how long it's going to take to explain all this because sometimes I do too much expanding, and I also sometimes lose focus on what I'm trying to actually say. So I might go off topic, but I think we all know what's up on here. That's kind of how it goes. It is getting warm in this automobile. It's crazy. Like, the sun's not even shining, but it's actually not cold. Like, it's cold with the doors or windows open, but it's actually warm inside this car. So, all right. I think a lot of people are kind of catching on and liking to maybe spend their lunch breaks and some time sitting in their cars near the same section where I'm at, because it's nice. It's kind of like by the bluffs, and it kind of just like overlooks the ocean, so it's kind of a nice spot to be close enough to get to very conveniently. It's easier to kind of stay in the car just because I don't know why they put a stupid paid parking here, but there's a paid parking, and I don't want to pay parking. And I have seen officers come through pretty regularly, especially on the weekends. But it's not too crowded yet. It's not too bad quite yet. Just come here and chill here and, take a break here. It's a nice spot. I kind of like it more than sitting in the driveway at the house. Especially because I know my parents like to look out the front door, and I don't know if they're concerned. I do a lot of weird stuff, so I kind of get that they're kind of like, what are you up to, like I'm always up to something weird that I kind of just don't share, and that's kind of normal for me. But yeah, she looks like somebody I know. This lady walked by. It looks like somebody I know, but it's not somebody that I'm like currently in touch with. So I don't know if I'm pretty sure that's somebody I know. But yeah, that's weird. Not in a bad way. It's just kind of funny. Anyways, I'm not trying to like catch up with anybody at this very second. So when talking about topics like sex positivity, it's like basically there's this idea that a lot of us get raised with, and like I've definitely talked about this topic before, but there's this idea that a lot of people get raised with of like shame about all kinds of things. And I'm not saying people shouldn't ever have shame about things, or that people should just be like, I mean, I don't know, like, like we're clothed, most of us, at least somewhat. But if you think about, human history, initially I feel like depending where people were placed in the world, on the planet, they initially didn't seem to really care sometimes about how much clothes they're wearing. Um, like a lot of indigenous groups of people, like if you take like maybe people from like Alaska, like um, the Inuit people. Um, I know I might be saying that wrong because there's a I think one of them is plural and one of them is singular. Uh, but I think when you say Inuit, you can say Inuit people. I think that's how it goes. But if it excuse me, if an individual is talking only about themselves, they would say something else. But I don't really know. I don't really know. I'm either saying the singular or the plural, and sorry because I can't remember which one is which. But basically, I'm just trying to say that maybe like indigenous groups and people who have like traditional lifestyles in that in those kind of regions of the world, in certain regions, you're going to be more bundled up, obviously, to protect you from the elements, or else there's no way you're going to be surviving like that in such harsh climates. But outside of those really harsh climates, it seems to me that people had maybe seasonal garb, like seasonal type of things to wear, and for the most part, it seems like um, people who covered body parts, it was like maybe like genital regions, um, things like that. But overall, it's like the way we are usually clothed in Western modern society today. I feel like we have way more clothes on than what I have studied as far as like humans in like ancient history, or people who might even be in modern days but living kind of in a traditional lifestyle and having, still keeping those traditions of those kind of clothing. Like there are definitely cultures that people are more on the nude end, and cultures where people are more on the clothed end. But it seems like before, I don't want to get into this. I hate talking about like colonialism, imperialism, that kind of stuff. But basically, I feel like all that kind of Western thinking, when people decided, certain people in the world decided they needed to come and take over all these other nations and all these other cultures of people, calling them heathens and savages and all kinds of negative, derogatory terms. A lot of them were taught by the Westerners that, the way you're living is not good. And, because of religious reasons, like you're gonna need to expect to go to hell if you're not gonna follow this religion and follow our ways. And with a lot of that came a lot of body shame, a lot of shame of just biological nature for the most part. Like Western thinking is quite shame based, shame and fear based. Like it's kind of more like shame and fear into cooperating. A lot of things that are taught are very like, you know, um, it's like I'm gonna melt in here. A lot of things that are taught are kind of, very based on, like, um, like fear, and in like cultural living, in societal living, unless you're kind of like in a hermit type of society, I guess it wouldn't be considered a society. I mean, but if you're from some kind of society where there's more like the individual is kind of more secluded, which I feel like that's a lot more rare. Like most cultures have like societies and, you know, groups or bands or even small groups, units of community, people, you know, loved ones, family members, distant relatives, friends, things like that, living amongst one another, you know, for group survival. You know, there's a lot of help and work together and everything. And, you know, even in modern society, you know, in Western modern society, as independent as we can be, you know, most people still seek to have some kind of, you know, social relationships that are going well and stuff. Like, I don't know that many people who prefer complete isolation all the time. And the people that I have known or heard about that do prefer that isolation, usually they prefer it out of, you know, experiences with people that were just negative, and they're like, well, I don't want people around because like this doesn't benefit me. Like usually I'm in more pain than pleasure, so why would I keep trying to socialize? But most people I know who are kind of like isolated tend to not like that. Uh, at least they don't want that for like their whole lives. It might be like, oh, I'm doing this for like a retreat or like a spiritual awakening of some kind, but it's not like a lifestyle, right? Like most people want somebody around them, if it's a partner or a friend or a neighbor or, you know, some person, you know. Most people don't really want to be like completely isolated, uh, unless the isolation is for development of some form or for comfort of some form. If it's more comfortable to be isolated than it is to be involved. Um, and so, usually when I think about those things, it's like, um, you know, I guess this isn't really considered like a definition, but it's like that's kind of um, how I kind of think about, and I feel like I'm kind of rushing. I feel like I'm kind of rushing talking about this, but I feel like that is kind of one of the ways that I've noticed, you know, things have changed, you know, is because a lot of the world these days is focused on what Western culture has been pushing for so many generations now, that it almost seems like normal. It's like, okay, like you have to wear clothes, you know, you have to wear long clothes, you know, unless you live in a place like, you know, where I live or some other place where you can kind of get away with wearing like a bikini or board shorts or speedos, like those brief cut kind of speedos or something along those lines. And it's not even year long, but it's like you can technically wear a bikini into like a Baskin Robbins or whatever, and like it's like it's kind of beach culture. It's not like that out of the norm. Like it's not like everybody does it, but it's like that's about the extent of what you can kind of get away with. But it's still kind of, I think people would still be like, oh, they're not wearing a one piece, or oh, like they're not near the beach, they're in a store, they need to cover up more, kind of thing. Um, you know, but like at a beach, at a pool, it's kind of considered more appropriate. Um, and I'm not making that judgment. I mean, I don't really care what people want to wear or not wear. But yeah, that's definitely one thing I've noticed. And damn it, I thought if I kept my door open, then people wouldn't park next to me. And this person just comes and parks right next to me. But basically, it's hot in here. It's cloudy, but the sun is like, where the sun is directed is like directly towards my car, and I'm wearing black, and the inside of my car is dark, so I'm getting a lot of heat. But yeah, that's definitely one thing I would say I've noticed. I gotta roll my window down. I gotta roll this window down a little and get some air in here. Um, so yeah, Western culture has definitely played a role in changes of things that are kind of like related to sexuality. Like, I don't think nudity is like directly related to sexuality. Um, because there are a lot of cultures that aren't like it is a very Western thing to look at somebody's body and be like, I'm aroused from looking at this. Like, that's not something that every culture has in it. That, like, oh, I see nudity, I see skin, I see body parts. Like, this person who's like, maybe they're in good shape and they're nude. Like, it doesn't really, it's not necessarily like, I see this, therefore I'm turned on. Like, those two things aren't necessarily um, something that happens um, just because of nudity. Um, like, we kind of learn that we are, oh, when we see this, like, it turns you on, or this other thing turns you off, or this thing you should be ashamed of, and this other thing is more okay. Like, it's considered more okay to be in a cis hetero relationship with a partner that you're married to that has the same religion, and you are a certain specific religion, and you are that same religion, and you have babies together, and you know, the whole purpose is procreating, and maybe a form of like marital satisfaction. And that's kind of like how sexuality is usually presented to us, is like, cover up your body, don't show any skin, or if you do show skin, it can't be in a certain way, and if there's only appropriate places where you can do it, like at the beach or whatever, you can't really just be like out in the open, like taking off your clothes and stuff. um, Walking around in a loincloth or just a little bit of something is not really seen as appropriate. um, but all of this is just cultural ways of thinking, and it's been drilled into a lot of our minds. Just in theory, like in general, like even if you think about, what you choose to wear and why, like, um, it's kind of weird. Like, there's always like weird stuff. Like, for example, like, I often have like a bra strap showing. Like, I don't find sports bras to be the most comfortable to some extent um because of the um um yeah, because of the, maybe the tight fit of it, or the, like, I feel like it kind of messes up my back, my posture. But it I don't like other types of bras because of I don't like the fastening in the back. I don't like the thinner straps. I don't like the cut of most of them. And then, like, kind of like the t-shirt, the line that it has like underneath the t-shirt or something, like the cut of it and everything. I kind of don't really like it. I mean, I've had them and I've worn them. I don't think I have any right now, but um, usually the ones I prefer, sports bras usually have, like, the uh, shoulder straps are usually closer to your neck. And so usually if you wear t-shirts and you're wearing a sports bra, it's not uncommon that it's going to be sticking out. And even something like that is like, I'm not wearing like any kind of like sexy clothing in any form. Like, what I wear is not considered culturally like a feminine sexy, you know. Like, I don't think it's considered that. Like, I try to look presentable, but I'm not, you know, I don't really have like a femme style of clothing. And usually if you're a female that doesn't have like a femme style of clothing, you're not seen as like sexually, like there's not like a, like something that someone's looking at saying like, oh, that's sexy. Like, if you have a shirt that's like oversized versus a fitted shirt that shows more, of your figure, or, maybe a shirt that has more cleavage because it's like lower cut, or a crop top that's like higher cut, or like there's different things that in Western society is like, this is kind of sexy female clothing, and almost everything else isn't. And usually it has to do with like form fitting clothing that shows off certain body parts, or skin showing certain maybe colors, designs, designer brands, things like that. Which all of that is like, it's not really a big deal. I could wear a plastic bag, and be just as covered, and appropriately dressed technically according to societal norms, and just be dressed in plastic, trash bag on the bottom, grocery bag on the top, and still figure it out. But like even something like, the reason why I was mentioning the sports bra is like because sometimes it'll be like showing, like the shoulder strap is like showing, and it's like, I don't really care. Like, who cares? It's just because of the cut of it, because of the combined cut of the sports bra and the combined cut of my t-shirt. Like, the way it is that it just kind of more snugly is closer to your neck. That's just how it is. But I know, that is kind of maybe less appropriate than not showing a bra strap, even though it's like, I mean, I guess it's even less appropriate to not wear a bra at all and just have your nipples doing whatever the heck and bouncing all around and stuff, and like, then having people be like, oh, like, you're not wearing a bra, like, that is maybe seen as like less appropriate. But it's like, I don't even think, it's like, it's so weird. It's like, to me, it's like a bra strap isn't even like a like, in today's society, it's like, because I'm thinking even like 15, 20 years ago, it's like there's some stuff you almost couldn't get away with, that nowadays it's like, at least things are a little open-minded. But I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel, maybe it's just because of the stuff I follow, but in my opinion, this is my opinion, I feel like queer culture is getting, maybe not more sexual, but more sex positive. And non-queer culture is getting really conservative. Like, I recorded that episode about, the drag performances and how they're saying all this stuff about, like, gender and, adult content and things like that. Like, trying to, like, make sure that certain things that talk about gender and adult content, that is not available to be visible to people who are under 18 years old, which is kind of like, I mean, I kind of understand the adult content part, but it's like, why you gotta throw the gender stuff in there too? It's like, because I think what seems to be happening is that people focus more on the gender stuff, not the adult content stuff. They're like, oh, this is some kind of gender bending, or some kind of like trans content, or some kind of non-binary content, and they're so concerned about that being a problem because they don't understand it or don't want to understand it, and there's this idea of all these things being so wrong that they want to censor all of it and stop it all, stop people from learning about it or knowing that it exists or thinking about it, or whatever it is that they're trying to stop. They're trying to stop it, that's for sure. And so, like, that's kind of something I noticed, as well as like, maybe like underwear, like the elastic band on your underwear showing or something like that. Like, that's kind of considered like something that's like, oh, you don't really want people to see that, it's like at least you're wearing underwear. I mean, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like one of those things that's like, when I think about certain things, like the way I get dressed, I think about it and I'm like, oh, like, that might be a little bit inappropriate, like, like, why would someone why are we taught, you tuck your shirt into your pants, you don't tuck your shirt into your underwear, right? Because your underwear would be showing like kind of a little bit on the top. Like that's less appropriate, right? So it's kind of like, but why? Like why is one thing seen as better than another? Wow, this car is literally very old. It's older than mine. I think this is the only car on the lot that's older than mine. Shout out, man, to the Chevrolet pickup truck. Damn, it's pretty cool. I love old cars. Um, Obviously I love them because I have a really old ass car. Um, but yeah, when I think of like intro topics, those are kind of like the ideas that I'm like, you know, uh, even to try to like define sex positivity is like just looking at the history of how, just clothing styles, clothing expression, or clothing, what's considered appropriate in society has changed. Like there's this content about, I don't, it's I'm conflicted about it. I like to learn about different cultures, but there's this content about this supposed like uncontacted tribe in the Amazon, and they kind of start coming out of the woodworks because there's this group Funai that is trying to help, like be helpful, but not necessarily like change their ways of living. But contact was made, either I think it was made initially by the indigenous uh, group of the tribe. I think they're the ones who initiated contact maybe, because there were, I don't know, I might have this story all wrong, but like there were people, I guess loggers or some kind of people that were coming into the forest and killing them and intimidating them and taking away their livelihoods and things, and they were basically at risk, and then it was causing other tribal warfare, and so other tribes were coming in and attacking this tribe that made contact. And the people that you see, it's initially I think it's mostly males, and they come out pretty much nude. Like they're pretty much, they have like this kind of like a headband, like haircuts. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a modified kind of bowl cut. It's like a bowl cut haircut, but it's not quite. Like it's kind of tapered in certain areas that I do not know how to explain. But they have like a uniform type of haircut for the males, a type of haircut like a mullet-ish bowl cut thing for the women. I don't know how to describe this, guys, but basically the point I'm trying to get across is like this was a more modern contact. I'm very conflicted about like people contacting indigenous groups of people. It's like they get ill, they get sick, like they don't need to change, but people want their resources, because that's how capitalistic societies work. They go and they try to find cheap or free resources, and when it's natural resources and there's people living there, they intimidate and kill people to take their stuff. And so that's how that looks. But basically, these people kind of start coming across this river, and you see how they look. Like these are people that aren't, you know, they haven't they haven't chosen to live in a modern society method. They have their ancient traditional garb, which is they were not wearing anything. They were pretty much nude, but they had like maybe like a headband to kind of keep their hair kind of like from flying all over the place in the wind and stuff. I'm assuming that's what it's for. Like maybe it's like a status symbol. I don't really know. Like maybe it's like this signifies like your position in the tribe or something. Like I don't really know what it is, but um, it basically shows all they really had was this band of some kind. I'm assuming it's made out of some kind of plant or animal. I don't know what it is. It's either animal skin or some kind of plant fiber that's kind of like woven into some kind of something that fits around your waist, very thin, almost like shoelace thin. And then they basically have like their penis is kind of up under that band around their waist, and then otherwise they have this kind of band that looks like a similar type of thing around their neck. Around their head, and then they're carrying like spears and all kinds of stuff for their own safety and hunting and all kinds of things like that for their own livelihood. Um, and the women, I think, I don't remember if they were wearing anything on the bottom. Maybe a really thin kind of grass skirt kind of thing on the bottom. I don't know for sure. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they had no tops on, and then their haircuts were a little different. Like it was longer in the back, but still that kind of short bowl cut in the front. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's like, there's a part during this documentary where, they're talking to the people, and there's like this lady who's kind of like a translator, and she's kind of more like westernized woman, and she's interpreting and kind of help them kind of understand some things about Western culture, and she's talking to these indigenous people, and she's explaining, they are like in the like it's something about they were talking about like clothing, nudity, um, they were talking about like the indigenous people were talking about, oh, we would see these Westerners like across the river or whatever, and see that they had blankets and clothes and like, and they explained some things along the lines of like, we were used to being, tired and hungry and cold all the time, you know, going days without food, not sleeping well because, other tribes were kind of like attacking or taking their women, their children, so they would stay up to try to like protect their own people, and then it was basically like their tribe was being like traumatized by a lot of changes happening in their environment. It sounds like what was starting that change was the people coming in from these logging companies or rubber companies or whatever types of industries that were taking their resources and trying to push them off the land so that they could basically take the stuff for whatever kind of corporate greed situation they had going on. And so these people were kind of like being pushed out, and they noticed that there were these people from Funai that were kind of like just living on the other side of the riverbank and just kind of like there a lot, and they would come over, they would like steal some things like blankets, clothes, tools, because they needed it for their own survival. And then the Funai, people in charge, I don't know if they were anthropologists or what they were, but they were like, don't take, like they were trying to yell at them like, don't take it, because they knew that the people would get sick, they would get fevers, they would get all kinds of illnesses from, we all know how unfortunately history has gone, that, the people were exposed to diseases that they didn't have, awareness of or cures for, and it wiped out a lot of their population. And this is a modern story. It's not like, this isn't like 1800s, 1700s, 1500s. This is like in the 2000s, like within the last, I want to say it's within the last like 7 years or so. I can look it up, but I don't know if it's gonna cut off this app.